Okay, so today we are going to take our fun kaleidoscope and we are going to alter it, learning how to adjust our color as well as our filters. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of finish up. I did miss one more step before we finished the other day, is we want to take these two layers and we do want to merge those together just to make sure that everything is on one layer. So you should have two layers or maybe just one if you deleted your guidelines, but the only layer I have showing right now is my actual kaleidoscope. So there are a ton of options as far as editing your color. So most of them are under the image adjustments, and you see all of these options. And if you want to play with all of them, go for it. I'm going to walk you through just a couple. The first thing I'm going to start with is brightness and contrast. So I'm going to pull this out to the side so you can see. But brightness does exactly what it talks about, and contrast is basically pushing the black images blacker, and taking away contrast means you're taking away the richness of those blacks. I always like to pump a little contrast into my kaleidoscopes. All right, so now I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to go back over here to my adjustments. I don't love the auto functions because auto is trying to make a perfect picture, not necessarily a fun art project. So going into adjustments, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to play with my hue and saturation. So this is kind of fun. So I can grab just the greens, let's say, and watch what happens. Any of the greens will get saturated or not saturated because I'm only affecting that green channel of color. If I go to master, it does everything. So if you are trying to be selective about what you are affecting, then play around a little bit. Let's see. I like that I like that my shirt was blue and the buckets were... Sorry, my shirt was gray and the buckets were blue. So I'm going to keep that the way it is, actually. And I am going to go back to my greens and saturate those a little bit more, just to perk up the color. I'm going to go to my reds. I'm going to take out actually a little bit of red. My face was kind of red in the picture. I'm going to take that out a little bit. And I'm going to say okay. All right, so now I'm going to go back over to image and adjustments. And here's another fun one to play with, it's color balance. So depending on the lighting of your photo, this picture was taken in the summer. You might have cloudier lighting and it might be really blue in tone or yellow in tone if it was taken inside. So you can kind of play with that and you can purposely kind of adjust your color one way or the other. So you slide those back and forth however you would like. All right, I think I'm gonna go this way a little bit. All right, I'm gonna say okay. All right, so the other thing I wanted to show you in, the editing is you do have some other options as far as like vibrance goes, and you could do something crazy like invert your color. That looks kind of fun, right? So all of those are under the adjustments. Posterize is kind of fun too. The lower the number, the more you actually see the effect. So I actually do like the posterizing a little bit. Let's see. Instead of dragging, you can physically type in here. All right, I'm going to say okay to that. So this is going to be my starting image. Okay, so again, all of those adjustments were found under the image adjustment section, and they all were in here. So feel free to play with them however you'd like. There also are some photo filters. These are not what you would think of as far as Instagram is concerned. They are more color-based filters that are a little bit more subtle. All right, but speaking of filters, we're going to go into our filter gallery. So we're going to go up to filter gallery. And then you'll get a preview of your image, and you can zoom out if you'd like to see a little bit more. So I did that down here at the bottom. And the cool part is when you get in the filter gallery, it shows you everything, so you can see all the extra stuff on the edges of your project, and that's totally fine. But all your filters can be found in these folders. So I like to open them all up typically. And this is always a popular one, but it's not necessarily the right thing to do, but you can play with the different options there. This one is watercolor paper, so a lot of these are adding texture. Let's see, what's another good one? Let's do plastic wrap. And again, you can play with each filter. Like it has controls, similar to like an Instagram would over here on the side. And then you can also layer things up. So I like the plastic wrap. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to add a new layer. So I press this plus button down here. And I'm going to go in. I'm going to play with the stained glass maybe. Kind of fun. Patchwork gives a cool texture. So I'm going to go back to stained glass actually. And I'm going to play with the sizing a little bit. Let's see. Oh, it's still thinking. I confused it. We're going to give it a second. Woo, there it is. All right. And sometimes manually typing in stuff works out a little better. So your progress bar is down here. So that's how you can tell if like you need to be patient or not. All right. So I'm going to keep it this way. It's kind of different and fun. And I'm going to say, okay. Now, the one thing I don't like is it kind of got grayed out, right? Well, I'm going to say okay to the filter. And we're coming back here, so now you can see it. And I can go back into my adjustments. And I can maybe brighten it up a little bit if I want to. Or maybe it needs more contrast. And I can also go into my saturation. And I could pump up the color a little bit more too. All right. I can also drag along this bar. This is kind of a fun option too. And completely change my coloration. So it's almost to the point where you can't tell that this is a goat and this is Mrs. Vance. And that's kind of the point, right? We've made this really cool design, but I maybe subtly can still see that you exist somewhere in there. So once you are happy with your design, again, you're going to double check that this layer is deleted or turned off and everything else is exactly how you want it. The first thing you're going to do is just hit save and make sure that you have this image as a Photoshop file saved on your computer. The next step would be to go to Save As. And this is where you're going to change the name. You want to make sure that it says your name. Okay, so in my case, it would be Mrs. Vance. And then whatever the project title is. That's the best way to stay organized and to remember what everything is. Now, it's still listed as a Photoshop file. I want to change this to JPEG. This is super important because Artsonia only accepts JPEGs. Okay, and once I have it as JPEG, I'm going to actually move this to desktop so I can easily find it. And I'm going to click OK. And then a new window is going to pop up. And then make sure that this little toggle is pulled all the way to the large side. And you're going to click OK there. And so now if I close out Photoshop, I should see my project in a JPEG form on my desktop. And if I double click it, it should open in preview now. And you should be able to see your design. Now, the one thing that is bugging me is I do see that teeny tiny crack in my design. I worked a little too fast and probably should have made sure that my initial slice was pushed in one more little pixel space to get rid of those lines. But again, when I'm looking for your grade, I am looking to make sure that you lined up everything nicely and that you made some cool editing choices to finish out your project. All right, guys, I hope you like this one. I think it turns out really cool, and there's some people that love these and make 20 of them because they go by really fast the second time you do it. All right, make sure that you have saved and that you close out your Photoshop, and then you're going to upload to Artsonia when you are ready. Have a good one.